So, Tashi Dekyid, it's really a delight to have you here, and I'm really glad that people in our community, in our Spanish-speaking community, can have the opportunity to hear from you and learn from you, and also English speakers can listen in. Um, and I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and all the life experience that you're bringing to the conversation. Well, not all of it, but
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here and also your interest in my work. I'm really excited to talk with you and, share some of my work, also, hear your thoughts and a dialogue here. And I grew up in eastern Tibet, Minyak. That is the region. It's very at the edge of the Tibetan plateau, and I grew up in a semi-nomadic community. That is, we have both animals to herd, also fields to plant. I didn't go to school until I was 11 years old. And so I had a lot of experience on being on the land, being in the community, taking care of animals, learning along with my parents and other elders, my grandmother. Um, just the kind of community-based, land-based education before I went to school. And I went to a secular school that is provided through the Chinese state, but we had Tibetan teachers. My school is kind of earlier model of education that are provided to Tibetans. That means a lot of Tibetan involvement. It was taught through Tibetan language, different subjects like science, math, these are taught in Tibetan language. And it was a village school, and later that was closed because there was not enough attendant. And then I moved to a different place. That was different school that was part of monastery, and it was founded by Algon Rinpoche. I don't know if you have heard about him. And it was really a good school. Then I kind of moved along to middle school, high school, and eventually I went to college in Beijing. This was a college of for minorities in China, and we have a Tibetan study program there. We have courses on Tibetan history, literature, language, linguistics. So I was I did BA, bachelor degree in Tibetan literature and language, and then I worked few years, and later I found myself back here in Virginia, the United States, and I did a PhD program in education, and my research was on indigenous ways of knowing land education, and particularly in Tibet. Yeah.
so this is for the people in our community. This is really uh, an incredible opportunity to be able to hear from someone who has both the immersion in the land-based culture and also the ability to see how things are looking from the other side of the planet and having gone through both forms of education. And most Spanish and English speakers, sorry, practitioners of Tibetan, wait, most English and Spanish speakers who practice Tibetan Buddhism did not encounter those teachings in spaces where they can observe and connect with living Tibetan communities. And whereas when practicing in Tibetan communities in Asia, it becomes much more clear how deeply Tibetan culture and Tibetan Buddhism is rooted in land, in place, and in relationships to specific local beings. But receiving the Dharma elsewhere, this could be much less obvious.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to just bring out to talk about from your doctoral dissertation where you write so beautifully and maybe longingly of what, and I'm going to quote, Tibetan place-based worldviews and relationships that are both spiritual and material.
Hmm.
Can you describe Tibetan place-based worldview and what those relationships look like?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Um, yeah, so for me, growing up in this community, um, our world is not just human beings and animals and the natural world as a kind of innate, um, okay, maybe I'll start again. Sorry. Okay. Um, so it is commonly known in Tibetan world that there is a different realms of beings. One is that the upper celestial world, which the divine beings that kind of in the sky or at the peaks of the mountains. And then we have kind of the middle earthly or terrestrial beings. Those are the Nyen, that includes, there's many types of beings in that part, but one that stands out very vividly is mountains. Mountains as Jibda, which means the rulers of the land, or as a kind of I call them as a uh, ter, terrestrial sovereigns, or like sovereign as kings or mountain sovereigns, because they are the guardians as well as the ruler of a particular region. And then we have kind of in the lower aquatic realm, water, in the waters and lakes, the Lu beings. So these are like very commonly known parts of Tibetan world. And then humans are in between spaces, on the earth or next to water, but in the in between spaces. So that was the world I know as the world. And then there's not just human beings, there's other like beings that are similar to human beings, have the same agency, and have a kind of moral responsibilities, but also how do you say, they can punish you if you did something that disturbs them or the communities. They also appear in the forms of animals and plants, and so all the kind of the world around you, the land, the water, the trees, the sky, is sentient or like alive or with agency, a lot of agents. That is the kind of place-based worldview and relationships I'm talking about. Let me see. Those I think are kind of pre-Buddhist worldviews. They are also in the part of Tibetan Buddhism. Um, we have a lot of rituals to practice, but also on daily basis, like how to treat, how to relate to water or trees. As children, we're taught not to disturb this water or this like spring, chimig, that's the eye of water. And because there's lubins live here, or don't cut this plant because that's part of the yin, And then my father and brothers, they also do annual visits to these certain mountains that as our terrestrial, our like protectors, the Jibda Mountains. So our world is very much alive and in kind of moral and ethical, um, as well as political relationship with the human communities. And then we have a sacred geographies. We have places where they hold power and power to heal, to bless you, to cleansing you. So those places can be a cave where a lama practiced before, and it can be a stream, a water that was both primordially powerful, or like someone blessed, or someone who practiced there, and that kind of endowed power in the place. So these are, I think, could be both pre-Buddhist and Buddhist, but I think mostly in Buddhist sacred geography, these are very permanent. And we also have different sites, like mountains to circumambulate, like Kailash, Mount Kailash. Garbochin is a secret mountain to many people who hold different religious beliefs, and um, that I think also, the Buddhist sacred geography, you probably know, it's all over India, China, Tibet. There's a certain like numbers of ne, and then they have a brand sites, brand sacred sites. So yeah, it's very expensive.
So, as you're growing up in a world that's peopled with all different kinds of beings, some of them, that are actually places, some of them that are, physical, geographical formations, some of them are living beings. Could you reflect on what you would describe as key elements in sustaining ethical relationships with such a range of species
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
and beings and places?
right. Yeah. I think traditions like intergenerational transmission of knowledge and traditions and ceremonies and rituals are really important in in this regard, in how to maintain these relationship, how to relate to certain mountains and certain beings. So they play a key role in to transmit that knowledge and that relationship through across the generations. Um, and I think the most basic principles are like respect and reverence, and also the um, for a community who is, grounded in one specific location, that kind of relationships and understandings pass through different generations, grandparents to, parents to kids and grandparents. So there is a, process, continuous process of building relationship, building trust. Um, and then I think that process is very kind of gradual, and it's a long-term relationship building. Long-term could be centuries. And in that, in this process, the rituals and language um, and kind of a constant relationship visit to particular place, offering prayers, poetry, offering other, food and things. Those are like really important process of relationship building. Um, and then also with the intentions of mutual support um, and also in mutual support and well-being for both the places of the beings and the community and the practitioner. Um, those are I think key element for, but for generally any people, I think respect and reverence, obviously, and gratitude. We our places provide us the foundations of our living, food and everything, how we can live. So gratitude is important. I was just thinking about there's this honorable harvest. You have probably heard about it. The Robin Kemmerer talk about a lot in Native American communities. I think that is very important guide principle. There are really important principles like take what is only given to you or take what is only needed. These kind of and also there's like different steps and principles in that regards. Yeah.
Maybe for people who haven't read Robin Wall Kimmerer or been exposed to the concept of honorable harvest, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think there were 7 steps. First, so whatever, like if it's about picking up berries or medicinal plants, or even hunting animals. So in that process, it's not like you go out there and pick whatever you want or kill whatever you can see the first time first. There is a process, ethical process and deliberation. So first, like you ask permission to the plant, but you also not just like talk to the plant, but you listen, you assess like the conditions of the plant, the whatever animal population, see is it okay to do this, and then also listen and kind of trust that they can communicate with you. I'm sure we feel something if we really listen. And then that was permission, listen, and don't pick the first one or don't pick the last one for so that means you make sure there's you live in you are making sure leave things like if it's a plant, if you don't pick the last one, they will have the seeds to grow. And I think it taking only what is given to you, or also take only what is needed. Don't pick all the. We can get greedy. So be content, uh, and also use whatever you take. That's very important. We can't waste what is given. It's alive for plants. We're taking their lives. What else? Also share and kind of reciprocate. There's many ways we can reciprocate in any relationship. For a plant, you can pick up the weeds, or I don't know, you do service back to the community of plants and all animals. So yeah, there's that process. It's really beautiful. I wish we all follow that, and we wouldn't be here with our environmental crisis if we did that. She was there was a really beautiful YouTube talk by her, and she was showing the really big mining site, and she was saying if we ask the meadow larks, she wouldn't give us the permit to dig, destroy this whole beautiful meadow. And yeah, it can go a long ways. It can be as simple as a daily practice when we pick a medicinal plant, but it can be like ethics for corporate mining and anything. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's very important. Beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
You've mentioned trust twice and have described a process of trust building. Could you say what the experience of living in a relationship of trust with the land and with the local beings looks and feels like?
Yeah. as you grow up in this community, it's kind of really a part of yourself, and it's really hard to kind of take apart and look what this is and describe. But I think, you know, um, like we have all sorts of spirits, land-based spirits. Some are hostile, some are like friendly or supportive or like guardians. And um, in that process, or in that kind of realms of beings, and um, I grew up uh, kind of knowing how to navigate that, but I wasn't like given a specific instructions, but it's a kind of a process of, I don't know, learning, just like engaging, also embodiment of what these process are like, from parents to young children, so you know what to do, and um, at certain place, what not to do at certain place, and also to be fearful of doing something and then have consequences. And I think when I go herding yaks, I am scared sometimes of hostile spirits, and they could steal you. We have one that's called Zen, and they can kidnap you. And there are stories of people being kidnapped by Zen. So you wear protective, like knots, and there are also Zen are those they are horse riders, and then they have pathways. You can build structures on their path because they have to cross, and you can build a tent in their path. So we know like how to avoid that. So these knowledges are very kind of specific to that place, and also like the intergenerational generational knowledge transmission. People know how to not to do, how not to bail, or how to avoid that place. But also like the Jibda Mountains, the guardians or the rulers of the place. I feel like when we see the mountain, our mountain is a snow mountain, very tall, and then it can always um, it's always covered by the clouds because they are high. It's in the clouds, and that's also you cannot see from the valley because it's behind the other mountains. So when you go herd animals up, and then when you can see, sometimes the clouds clears and you can see the peaks of the mountains. So there's much kind of excitement and joyful also to see that. And then I think that's just simple process of recognizing and noticing, and also being kind of, I think, is being in communication with the mountain. You see, and sometimes you sing, or if when we are in summer pastures, we make song offerings when the mountain clears, when you can see sometimes. So it's just, yeah, daily kind of process stuff
Mm.
life. Yeah.
So when we talk about building trust in a relationship, it doesn't mean suddenly you're always protected and always in a safe place. There are dangers, but you're aware of it and you learn how to be cautious around them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. So in your dissertation, you also explore this as it's described in the Tibetan textual world and literary world. And one genre of Tibetan texts that walk us right into this territory are the Neik, which
Yeah,
I think you translate as instructions for engaging power dwelling places, which
yeah.
is the best translation I've seen by far.
Oh, thank you.
Sometimes it's translated as like, you know, pilgrimage guides or guidebooks or other ways that don't come anywhere near to capturing what it's about. Could
Yeah.
could you could you describe these instructions for engaging power dwelling places and talk about how they nurture people's relationality to place? How do they shape an ethics that guides us how to relate to non-human species and beings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think my experience of engaging A is both orally and also textual based, especially for this dissertation. So as we were talking about the kind of communal and intergenerational knowledge transmission that I experienced as growing up in this community with the mountains and other spirits. But for secret sites, similarly, we go different, go visit different places of power. And as a young children, parents take you along and they will tell you what this is. And then here is this spring is blessed by this, or this spring is, kind of water is, you know, uh, it's a secret because of this, like, I don't know, like someone's, could be someone's tear, a deity, or it could be, I don't know. There is also even like someone watched hair here, like a divine being. So that's why it's secret. And then also caves who practiced here and who visited here. So those are like oral kind of instructions that kids will learn as they grow up. And then the texts, there are a lot of texts on how to engaging with power development, places of power. Um, so yeah, they are often gives the history of the place. In this context, it's quite interesting to see um, kind of the Buddhist and pre-Buddhist sites emerge sometimes. This site is already a sacred or like sites of divinity, and then later like Buddhist instructions also incorporates that and say, oh, it was this previously, this was this side, and then that place-based being still there. Sometimes their roles are changed. It was could be like the ruler of the region now, so is the protector of Dharma and also protector of the Ne. Um, and there's instructions on how to circumambulate the mountain, if it's a mountain, and what to look out for, like where, like there, like there may be a footprint of Guru Rinpoche, or there may be a cave where a famous Lama meditated. Those are about the physical environment, and then there is also instructions on how to um, greet the place or like celebrate with place, singing, making offerings. And these are ways of kind of aligning auspiciousness, auspicious connections. You're making connections, auspicious connections. If you, this was a specific text that are written by Gontu Rinpoche. He has instructions how to align the auspiciousness connection. Dende Ji, right? And then you dance. If you dance here, or some certain things may happen in the future. Certain relationships may come together if you sing here, and so it's really beautiful and embodied experience. And then there's a lot of activities, other things like if you notice certain animals, it could be an embodiment of this spirit. Do this and don't do this. And obviously, tasting water, drinking, cleansing, and water. Um, as well as, oh yeah, notice the sky, what kind of, rainbows may be there, or the rain. Anyway, it was really a very kind of whole body and the whole kind of spatially, like the sky, earth, water, all is part of that, engaging, like part of that process of engaging the place with place
Mm.
of power. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're just giving such a dense and vivid description of a spirituality that's also material
Yeah.
and fully embodied. And
hmm
I wonder if you could reflect on how it is that land-based practices allow the body to open pathways back to our relationships to the land or to our non-human kin.
Yeah. So in Conchu's texts about how to engage places of power or power dwelling places, he has this really powerful um, articulation of what Ne is externally, but also internally. He talks about our body has channels, and the tile, that's a kind of circular wind energies that go through our body. And he was describing that the engagement of the outer space or the physical sites is kind of is also engagement of our own our bodies, our kind of inner world, and then they're aligned. And our kind of the channels and the tile um, are some, like the sites are the channel grounds, the secret sites, and the divine beings that go between our own body has divine beings within ourselves, and they also they are the kind of in the form of tilis, and then we have energies outside the planet, like the sun and the moon and stars. They're also kind of energy um that I don't know, they go or interconnected with the powers, the sites of powers. And then it's kind of, I don't know, the physical body and the physical world, but also inner channels and divinities, divine beings kind of uh, engage, engaged or interconnected or um, it's a process of connecting with that. If we go these sites and if we engage the places of power, that's very kind of high level spiritual engagement. But on daily basis, I think it's really important to be able to being in being in outdoor in places, live along with other lives, that includes animals, plants, and that's also allow ourselves to recognize our own kind of physical process. And often I feel like working in offices, go to schools in classrooms is very decontextualized way of learning and being. We're kind of removed from I don't know, the real life processes. And yeah, I don't know, did that make sense at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it makes me think about you're describing how, you know, in each relationship we're actually engaging with an agency that's distributed or that was constructed. Like if we relate to a particular name, we might also be relating to the lama who had meditated there or the beings who had consecrated the place. And then removing ourselves from all of that intense relationality
Mhm.
into boxes. And
Yeah.
it makes me wonder if you could reflect a little bit or if you have any thoughts on what kind of an embodied subjectivity is made possible or is evoked or called out when we are engaging in with places and engaging with other beings in the ways that you've been describing. It's a different kind of sense of oneself as a subject.
Yeah, yeah, it's um um yeah, I think the idea of self is much extended and kind of continuous with other beings, other places. And um, also, in certain ways, you don't feel the sense of self being in these powerful places. I had this experience visiting a mountain in Golok, northeastern Tibet. This powerful, beautiful mountain. Just it's such a powerful feeling that I don't know. You feel like I just don't feel a sense of self. It's just like, I don't know. I'm there or just both at the same time. You kind of feel powerless, but also powerful because of um, I don't know. You are not this individual being that trapped in one body. You kind of very I don't know, you're like part of that, the whole powerful thing. So it's, I don't know, that's really it's a I don't know, it may be a feeling of awe or beauty, but it's powerful. And then this sense, place-based subjectivity, um, the sense of self is less obvious as you are really part of a community, and maybe you have a sense of the community or the world around you, but you don't have to stand out to be this person and that person. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the ways that we are constantly constructing a sense of a separate self and a personal identity is through the stories that we're telling.
Yeah.
And in your dissertation, you're looking at this abundance of oral narrative traditions in Tibetan where they're telling stories about people, in canonical life stories or contemporary short stories that are
Mm-hmm.
exploring place-based relationships. So they're kind of weaving a story in which the self in that story is actually woven into place. And
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if you could reflect a little bit on what the power of stories is in establishing, cultivating, honoring our relationships to place and to non-human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and also what kind of self emerges in that order of story.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Stories. I did write about stories as intellectual beings. They are also kind of teachers to um, kind of teach and then theories and teachers of teach teach us how to live in relationship with land or other beings, also to each other and in the community. I think the power of stories is it invites you be part of that process. In that way, it can be kind of ceremony or ritual. It invites you invite the reader or the listener into the story. That's it's powerful, and especially oral stories. They also tend to evolve or change. Depends on the context, the storyteller or the audience, and it's the essence or stay, but it's also changed to include the specific context of the time and the place of that story. So in that way, it is kind of dynamic, a living process of understanding and processing um, different experiences and relationships. And for communities, um, stories, also history. It's a kind of oral history or living history. And uh, example for one example, the mountains I talk about, the Jibdar Mountains, mountain sovereigns. We have Sanyi. This is another text, another written and both oral and written tradition. In that there's stories of the mountain, how this mountain come to be as the guardian and the ruler of this region. And there is also um, like kind of communication directly with the mountain, tell them uh, like who we are as a people to the mountain. And then it's a direct communication with the mountain, and also ask for request, whether, protection or assistance. That is through that story, these texts, oral traditions, we kind of we are able to relate or communicate with the mountain, or like the mountains, I don't know, like intentions or lives come to alive to the community through stories. So stories works as a bridge between human and kind of place-based spirits or divinities. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sarah Jacobi. She's translated Sarah Kandro's biography, and there's a story in there about when she's visiting one of the power dwelling places, a mountain. And in a retreat in Mexico a few years ago, I told that story
Mm.
as part of the retreat. And then a while later, one of the people who was in the retreat told me that she had told that story to her daughter.
Aw.
And then they were out, they went for a hike in the mountains, and they were sitting somewhere. Her daughter got very quiet for a while. And she asked her, like, her daughter, "What are you doing?" She said, "The mountain is giving me my instructions."
Oh, yeah, wonderful.
Which
Yeah.
so hopeful that stories can work their magic and can awaken that connectedness. We can sense it as soon as we're invited to open up to it, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I believe that. It depends a lot on how we as human beings pay attention and listen and recognize the voices out there. If we shut off, we may say that, that's superstitious. There's no such thing as this land-based spirit. And we shut off our own abilities to listen and our abilities to notice and recognize and be in communication with the more than human world, both kind of the physical or biological, but also metaphysical spirits. Yeah.
Turning towards the question of how outside the context that you describe, that is so rich in stories and rituals and practices and worldview, and look at how we can nurture relationships to place where we are. And
Yeah.
the human history of migration, forced and unforced, is so long and far reaching. And there are questions that Tibetans have had to face in diaspora, as have so many other displaced peoples when they're leaving behind deep relationships to their land, and I'm struck that you can find Tibetan rituals that are propitiating local land-based spirits of Tibet being conducted all around the world, not just on in the region where those local spirits are living. And so I wonder, can we maintain relationships to land and local beings at a distance beyond just nostalgia? And
Mhm.
if so, how?
Yeah,
And if not, how can we properly mourn that loss?
right. Yeah, that is such a um, important, also difficult question. As you said, there are Tibetans do certain rituals outside of Tibet to protective deities, to land-based spirits. Um, I think I don't know. Is at in set to certain degree, maybe the relationships are maintained or alive, but I think it's quite different from that you being there physically in front of a mountain or you know especially the power dwelling places you have to physically be there and receive and the blessings or jinlam waves of gift um jinlam, right? Yeah.
Mm,
So really um but I think for me personally, one way of maintaining these relationship is through families. Like you have families in Tibet. For me, like my families would do certain kind of annual obligations and responsibilities on my behalf and my son's as he was born here. And, you know, they make offerings on our behalf, tell our names to the mountain, to the deities. So this is kind of a relation. Uh, I don't know, like a relationship, both a continuation of relationship through your family and extended families. That's one way. And the other way is kind of embodiment of homeland in your own body. That was something I think people who are displaced and who uh, uh, oh, people who are born in their homeland and then displaced, they kind of carry parts of their places in physically in their body. And for Tibetans, especially, we have this idea of the five personal deities. So in your body, you have parts of your body, your head and shoulders, and you carry the deities from your parents, from the local land. So your physical body is also is part of the homeland. So you do carry that. And then I think it's important to know that yeah, for many reasons. Um, and for kids, children who are born outside of Tibetan or other indigenous homelands, they also have the um, what do you call genealogical relationship to their homeland through their parents. Um, so yeah, that's one way. And the kind of I don't know, I do this kind of artistic way of also maintaining relationship is uh, like I write poems and especially to the clouds who move across continent. So, and also wind that also moves across continent. So, you know, our physical, there is a physical constraints and the borders that are really, impenetrable because of the powers. But also there are other more powerful ways, the clouds and the wind, they're gonna move.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's kind of personal and artistic ways. Yeah, and then as you said, I think there are loss. There are real loss, and I don't know how to like mourn that. And then I think I don't know, there is a proper process of doing that, other than writing stories or poetry. Um, but and then as you also said, for me, it's the hardest part is animals. Yeah, like animals, I know they die out, and there's no way, kind of really nothing can substitute that loss. One way, kind of spiritual way, I was, like make prayers and chant and light a butter lamp in their names. So that's a small way of mourning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I wonder about establishing relationships or sustaining relationships that to lands that are not ancestral to us,
Mm-hmm.
and which means lands that have been taken from the humans that belonged to that land in many cases.
Yeah.
Um, s- on the one hand, on the one hand, there are all of these disrupted relationships that we're moving around within, usually not acknowledging, and the traces of that have to be there in the land.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, and so how do you reckon with that? And at the same time, without the stories and instructions that tell us what other beings around and how they need to be related to, and without the rituals and ceremonies that open up spaces to encounter and nurture multi-species relationships,
Yeah.
what pathways or practices do we have available to us?
Yeah.
And how do we come to terms with the entire, web of broken relationship that is also being held in the land?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very important, so difficult question. And yeah, um, as you said, these um, rituals and ceremonies and stories offer us unique and powerful ways and spaces to engage the land-based relationships. And without that, um, i- it's hard to, um, you know, it's hard to build. It would be a long process to build that relationship, and I don't. It could be multiple generations. It could be never possible without the proper um, relationships and with the local communities and the indigenous communities and their places, especially when we think about a lot of kind of historical violence that are done to the community and the places. But I think there are ethical ways to build good relationship. And I think, one way, a simple way, and also a very important way is reach out to the communities, the indigenous communities of the place where we are, uh, and find and listen to them and listen like how we can be in a supportive relationship with that community and their places. Um, and also I think we can I think we need to be like a visitor. We are always a visitor, and then the visitor will, have to listen to the host and also be in kind of in a relationship that is humble and also appreciative, and then always learning how to be better be in better relationship with the place and their communities. So we're not coming from a position of kind of superiority. I know this place. I know how to engage this, land and what's best for them. So, but we're coming from a position of humility, right, and humble, and also a position of gratitude, from a position of curiosity, and that's can open ways to build better relationship. Yeah.
When we spoke previously, you were talking about your concern to ensure that your son cultivates right relationship to the land he was born in. Could you describe some of the practices you've done with him to do that?
Yeah. We have a long ways to go. So we at a young age, I teach him that the plants and the animals and insects in a kind of familiar terms, like this is the mother of this plant, or this might be the baby, or this might be the mother, because young kids, they can relate to that family familiar terms very easily, and then they can feel the the love and maybe even gratitude, certainly the love between parents and kids, and so he will understand other beings as similar to him, that they have a kid, they have parents, they are children of someone else. So in that way, he would respect and not harm the plants and the animals. And other ways is take him out a lot, outdoors, and so he can have a kind of sensorial experience of the place and plants. Other ways is so my Tibetan upbringing experiences influence how I teach him, and I try to teach him about the plants and animals here, but I don't really know much about them. But we pay attention and take notice of what plants comes out in the spring, how oak trees change their leaves. What does that mean? It marks maybe the spring, this marks the fall. So we're going to try to recognize the seasonal patterns. That's how kind of understand the many life forms that are out there and surround us, within us. Other ways is read about histories and read a lot of children's stories written by indigenous communities here, authors, and understand their historical histories, both violent, but also their current presences and vitality, and the things they're doing. Pay attention to that.
Mhm.
because it's really easy to uh, not to notice that, because the U.S., schools, education, the places, the public media, and just like how towns and structures here kind of really erase the indigenous history of this place. So we also visit the local community here, Monaca Nation, go visit their, they have a museum, and attend their powwow, which is open to people from outside of the community. So those are some simple ways I try to teach him. Yeah, I would love to, in the long run, find ways to not only learn from them, but also in ways to contribute back to them and support their goals and purposes, and yeah.
The transmission of the Dharma to North America and Europe, as well as Latin America, tend to stress its universal application.
Mm.
And in this moment of globalization, the teachings of Buddha can be presented as not only timeless, but also placeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that you noticed that often North American communities practicing Tibetan Buddhism will tend to honor and relate to Tibetan communities and maybe even cultivate a sense of connection to Tibet and the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an ethical relational practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but but you spoke also of the importance of honoring and cultivating connections to the indigenous land and people, native peoples of that place, or original peoples of that place that they're living,
Yeah. Yeah.
and establish right relation to land and contribute to this incredibly urgent task of this moment of addressing
Yeah.
the structures and harm that's being done to the earth.
Yeah, I think that is very important to have a right relationship with the communities and the lands where you are, especially Dharma centers that has a lot of lands, of indigenous lands. There are several centers. There are some centers they tend to have big land of uh, big land in American. I think. Um, Obviously they can reach out to the community, as you were doing when you hold retreats in places, and especially if the center stays there, and then that's a very good opportunity for the community to reach out to the Dharma community, to reach out to the indigenous community, and build a relationship. And we don't know what they would want, and what kind of relationships they want. They may not want relationship at all. That's possible. That's fine. But I think it's for the Dharma community, it's important to do that. And then there's multiple ways of building relationships. Obviously, starting with the communication with them and see what they would want and need. And I was thinking, like, one way is give access to the land for that community. That land, maybe their sacred sites. Land, maybe their ancestral burial ground. Who knows? Could be a place of their important medicinal plant gathering, or like even hunting. That would be a little problematic, but still, I think there is a way to support the community and their cultural language revitalization. And obviously also there would be cautious steps to take, not to impose dharma on them. That's that's a problem, like a missionary, right? You should learn this, and that would that I don't think that would be ethical way to do it. But I think like given access to land, even land back when the Dharma Center, I don't know, like co-ownership, co-stewardship, those are really important ways to engage with the local communities. I would like to conclude our conversation today with a few words of hope and auspiciousness and good wishes. And I have this 7 line of poem or prayer that I included in my dissertation. And these are traditional Tibetan. The first 3 lines come from a traditional Tibetan song that concludes a celebration or a song contest. It could be a contest of song or like a wedding ceremony. And then the first 3 lines are recorded as songs from women. So I composed few formal lines that kind of reflect the contemporary conditions, both ecological and political and cultural, kind of the challenges, and that reflects these contemporary challenges, and also our intentions. And so these songs are about yang. I think you probably have heard about it. Yang is a kind of essence of fortune. It's more than the material wealth. It's something that lives within beings, humans too, and animals, and even stove of a family. And it's kind of a quality of beings and things that possess same power and vitality and preciousness. And let me see. And it's more than the material wealth of only livestock or land or things as properties or assets, but it's entanglement with the concept of danger. That's a kind of connections, fortunate connections, but also has a Buddhist causality and emptiness. Anyway, so I will read those lines. These are I understand them as lines or prayers that are recognizing and declaring who and what are the true essence and foundations of our kind of fortunate and hopeful and thriving existence. So these are really important part of our lives. Okay. Tangoma sharne kyanglandi tajuma tatang linayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Zogoma sharne jonglandi zojuma tatang linayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Lungoma sharne golandi lujuma tatang linayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Gongoma jene yang lantab konjuma tatang relayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Chungoma jarne mulandi chijuma tatang longnayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Drangoma jine jonglandi drajuma tatang droglayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Drangoma juni zelandi drajuma tatang janglayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Drangoma jene namlandi drongjuma tatang wunayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. Me koma sherne lalandi Wujuma tatang yurnayo yang kendang mandir jashisho. So it's a prayer and also poem and a song. Yeah, as many other indigenous communities are struggling as well as thriving about is their languages. So I think my kind of concluding with the Tibetan words are in some ways to stress the importance of language and there's survival and flourishing. Yeah.
Tashi Dekyid, you've handed out to be sent in all of these different directions to all of these places where people will be listening to your words. Pearls and coral and all sorts of gems and beautiful thoughts and inspiration. And I want to thank you for that very, very deeply.
Yeah, thank you. I hope those are brings some may open spaces for the audience to think about, um, build your own ideas and pathways to be in better relationship with the places where we are, and including on our ancestral lands, if especially if you're displaced, and Mother Earth. That is, and also the coaxial systems, the moon and stars, they are also part of us. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.